Folks, I'm Hart. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to part 2 of the 1932 Ford Roadster project. Building a boat tail for this car, using a hood from a 1940 Ford to do so. And today, I'm going to chop the living daylights out of this thing. So I think the next natural step in this process would be getting the rear cross member in, which is what I said in the last video, part 1. That's what my plan was. But I talked to my friend Dave, and Dave suggested running a later cross member. That way, number one, it'll save me some time because this cross member in the 32 is set up for a radius spring. Now I can modify that for a straight spring, but I could just run a later cross member and it's already set up for the straight spring. And in doing so, I get to salvage this 32 rear cross member for somebody who desperately needs it, because there are a lot of people who really need this. And of course, the later 35 to 40 cross members, they're plentiful. There's plenty of those out there. So we get to save this 32 for someone who really needs it for another project. And I think it's the same angle. It might be a little less actually on the later one. But either way, like I mentioned in the earlier video, this spring mount is going to be lifted up so high for me lifting the tail of this up and pinching these in that I'll probably end up running an entire spring pack in this thing. So my buddy Scott's got one. I'm going to swap him for the 32. I'm going to run and see him today. But I really wanted to just get started on this thing. So in looking at this again, I'm going to move on to something else. I love the shape of this frame. I love the shape of this frame, the overall shape of this frame. It's got a really attractive look to the curves of this frame. I think everybody likes the way 32 frames look, but I especially like this one when it's pinched in the back. So I want to maintain that shape. I'd like to get this smooth from the frame coming up into the body. If you remember, part of my inspiration for doing this was the 30s Miller Ford racing cars from the Speedway. I really love those cars. I'm not trying to build any sort of replica. This will not look anything really like that, but I'm inspired by that car. And it has very smooth sides. Of course, it has a belly pan. I probably won't do a belly pan on this. I'm not really sure at this point, but I definitely want this frame rail to come smooth up into this body. And that means getting rid of the stock sub rail, bringing the cowl in and setting it up on the frame, and bringing in the doors to where they match the body line. And in order to do that, this cowl is sitting about 2 inches. I got about 2 inches to pull it in on either side to get it up on the frame and have it match this contour of the frame. So I'm gonna have to section, we already know we're gonna section this thing horizontally because we want this body line to line up with the tail of the 40 truck hood or car hood we have. I want this body line to line up, and where I've set that hood, I've done a lot of measuring. I thought it would be about 2.5 inches of sectioning this, but it's going to be about 2 inches of sectioning, and that'll drop this down and line this up with the back. But now I have to section this thing vertically to bring all of this in 4 inches, and I've kind of got a plan to do that. I really want to maintain a stock look on the firewall, and come around the front here, I'll show you what my plan is. So we know we're going to section this thing horizontally. We know where we're going to pull out some of those parts. I think you've probably seen people do this before, maybe not. But I want to maintain this stock look with all these beads and different things that are in it. I don't want them interrupted and offset. I really want to cut this in a way that maintains that shape. I've actually done this on another car years ago for a customer. He wanted me to drop his car. I don't even remember if it was a 32. I can't even remember what it was, but he wanted to maintain the look of the firewall. So I'll be doing that. Now, I'm going to section this vertically, probably on either side of the cowl vent, and then I'll bring it down right here next to this big fat bead, down through here, and then I'll be able to angle up with this angle cut and cut along here to meet this section. And then all that should slide together like an accordion. It'll just slide right together back where it's at, and I can maintain this stock look and not have these beads busted up on here. And that's what's really important to me. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to go visit Scott later and swap out the rear cross members, but I'm going to get started on cutting this thing up. I thought, well, maybe I'll do the horizontal cut first and I'll put it together, or maybe I'll do the vertical cut first and then put that together. I think I'm just going to cut both of these pieces, the firewall and the cowling, and have them scattered in 8 pieces and get it all together, one big shabam, and that's what we're going to look at right now. I'm going to lay it out, and I'll be right back. Okay, so it's all taped off and ready to cut. I took my Sharpie, made some marks at some of the intersections. You know how it is when you use a death wheel. It blows some of the tape off there from time to time, and then you're lost. So it's a good idea to stick a couple marks on there, then you can always stick your tape right back where it was if you lose it. I don't think I'm going to do a time-lapse video like the old television network builder series that I used to do. I think I'm just going to get this thing hacked apart, tack it back in place, and then I'll join you right back here. Okay, here's some hillbilly math for you. 2 divided by 5 makes 11. It took exactly 5 4.5-inch cutoff wheels to turn these 2 pieces into 11 pieces. I am a guy who believes it's important for a man to be able to admit to his mistakes, to give sincere apologies, and to prove that he's willing to correct himself with his actions moving forward. I followed my tape lines down right here until I realized, hey, I need this engine recess in the middle. So I needed to quickly move these tape lines out to the edge and pull my 2 inches off out here on the bottom half. So now it's time to stick these things together and see if we can get them propped back up on here looking somewhat pretty. Okay, I got rained out yesterday. I'm back at it today, grouping these parts together, clamping them up, checking my seams, checking fitment. Just want to try to eliminate or at least reduce the chances of any catastrophic fitment issues as I'm putting this thing back together. I'm going to go in with my porta blaster and blast a few little areas here to put in some good clean tack welds. If you don't have one of these, you ought to pick one up. It's a great tool. Airline goes in, cap comes off, sand goes in, and then you can come in and you can blast where you want to blast with these things. You can blast in big parts with it if you want. I just kind of use it to spot stuff in. But another tool that I use, these Kevlar cutoff wheels, you probably use a lot of these too. Now listen, I've lived a pretty dangerous life. Let's not try to fool each other here. I don't spend a lot of time giving safety tips, but I will offer this one. When you use these wheels, you ought to wear a mask, just like the directions say. You know, I was lucky enough to have some great tool sponsorships back in the day, and because I had those tool sponsorships, these people made me watch all these safety videos. I got to watch some cool ones, some argon tanks like shooting through the roof of buildings, but I watched one on these wheels, and the stuff that's in these wheels, you ought to be wearing your mask. I remember being a young man on Gasoline Alley and the old guy saying, Jay, you make sure you wear your mask if you're grinding aluminum. Make sure you got your safety goggles on at the lathe, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And when I was young, I didn't care so much. I got a lot of metal in my eye, had a weird cough for a while. And I remember telling those guys and saying, guys, I'm just a young guy. I'm trying to be cool, build some cool stuff. You know, I'm not going to be a career guy like you. You guys have been doing this for decades, you know. Well, I'm about halfway through my 3rd decade of this, and I've used a lot of these wheels, and I've ground a lot of aluminum dust, metal dust, rust, all sorts of stuff, and I've machined a lot of parts. So at some point, I did wise up, and I started wearing a mask. Now, if I'm using an offset and grinding, you're probably not going to see me with a bunch of protective gear on, but if I'm using these things, I try to mask up all the time when I'm using these things. And that's it for the safety tip. I'm going to get back in this thing. We'll get this thing tacked together. I'm stoked about it. I can't wait to see this like shortened, squished in miniature version sitting back on that frame. So I'm going to get at that right now. I'll be right back. Okay, this was a heck of a day. It's very hot and humid in Indiana, and welding outside is no fun for a chubby guy in hot, humid weather. But you know what? It was all worth it because I love the way this looks. I love the way this looks. I got it all tacked together. It's all sitting up there the way it's supposed to be. You know, I thought about maybe, you know, filming a little bit more of the struggle of trying to get the pieces to line up. It really wasn't that bad. You know, everything's kind of a fight, but you know, you just have to think your way through some of this stuff before you go just doing stuff. You kind of got to think your way through it. And once I got the firewall all together, I used some of these parts to line up the firewall, got the firewall welded up first. Then I came around here and I stitched in right here in the front of the cowl. I did this front part of the cowl, and that let me know how my cuts were back here. And all I needed to clean up was this one and the one over here. right here in the back. I had to clean that one up just a little bit to get this radius in the back. I'll show you in just a minute. But it went together pretty good. Other than my screw up right here, I wish I wouldn't have followed that tape down. But it ended up pretty good. I would have saved myself a little welding, wouldn't I? But this foot is bent in a little bit more than that one over there, probably just from being stored and being sat down on that. I need to straighten that up. It did kind of mess with me a little bit when I was trying to get this back together. You know, I don't know if you guys want to see the time-lapse stuff of me just like tacking a bunch of stuff together or just like grinding on something. To me, I like to just get to the goods and like cut it up. Let me see what it is, Jay. And tell me why you're doing what you're doing and what your plan is. So this was my plan. So we sectioned this again, 2 inches and 4 inches. So it came in 4 inches this way, 2 inches that way, and we've got this more narrow car now. Now that's gonna, of course, that's going to change some stuff with my steering column. It's gonna change some stuff with my hood because I have to, let me show you about the hood here. Because now the hood, you know, I want to keep the grill shell the way that it is. And that means that the hood, I'm going to have to shorten the hood by 2 inches. Like, you can't just take 2 inches out all the way down because then it won't match the grill shell. So you got to start up here with 2 inches and come down to a triangle down to nothing. And then when you bring this in, it's going to change this line of the hood. And I'll probably just have to add maybe 1/4 inch or 3/8 of an inch maybe along this area here where this dips in to have it line up with the cowl and still have the same shape for my grill shell. We'll see. We'll see when we get there. Haven't done it before, so maybe there's some issue that I'm not seeing. Maybe you're seeing it. Maybe you can tell me in the comments what any of the issues that you see moving forward. I'll show you some other stuff. Of course, it changes where my hinges are for my door hinges, which is no big deal. I got to section the door too. So, as you can see, we got the sides all down. Got it running smooth to the frame. I had to take some pieces off the bottom. It was rotten anyway. And I'll have to fix this anyway because the bead's going to come up and sit on the rail. I'm not sure that I'm going to put a bead on. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Whether or not I'm going to do a bead across this all the way to the back. I may not. But I'm anxious to get the tail sitting back up on here to see where everything lines up. This is going to be kind of fun. Let me show you how narrow this is now. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at now. Now, I love how compact this is. Going to be a tight fit, but you know what? It just gets your girl to sit closer. That's it. You know everything. I've watched people deal with the tight fit of headers and steering and stuff down here. There's a lot of options with steering. I'm not afraid of it. We'll figure it out. Race cars are more narrow than this and they steer just fine. And there's lots of options in a race car as well. So it's looking good. We're getting that radius, following all the way down onto the frame. Very excited about that. And as I said, after taking 2 inches out here, that changes its position of the hinges. So now my hinges are going to have to, be in a different place on the door. And I love a couple comments. I had a comment, I'm sorry, I can't remember the second guy, but the one guy I know, his name was Ray, and he was friends with my buddy Zoom. And he sent me a message and he said, hey Jay, you're gonna have a lot of space through this area. Why not stretch the doors? I'm sectioning the doors, but why not stretch them and give myself a little more room? And as I mentioned, I'm a chubby guy. I don't plan on stopping my beer drinking anytime soon. And that's a great idea. So I'm quite certain that I'm going to do that. I'll stretch this door back. And somebody else mentioned it too. So it must be a very popular idea. And it's a good one. I think it's a great idea. Okay, so I just got it kind of leveled back out again. I forgot I made these dollies and it sort of threw off the balance of the frame. And I wanted to get back to level again because that's where I started seeing it and I want to kind of keep that moving forward. Loving where we're at. It looks like we now have this rear end where it's going to be tunable for this front body line. We'll get that straightened up. We got a heck of a storm coming in, by the way. So I'll probably get this pushed under there and do some work on the rear end, actually. Maybe go ahead and trim off that flare. Get that all trimmed off. Pretty compact area here, so I don't have a lot of places to go out of the ring. But instead of working on the rear cross member, I think we're going to go back. I'm going to set the radiator on, get the grill dropped down 2 inches. We'll do some work on the hood, because if we get this hood section, get the hood on, we're really going to be cooking on the bodywork then. And we'll get a good idea of looking at the top of this car. I'll set it down. We'll get a good idea of the top of the car. I love standing next to an old Indy Roadster and seeing the shape. You can see the whole top shape of the car, and it's just beautiful. Gives me chills talking about it, actually. But I want to see if this car gets some of that flavor. I hope some of that inspiration pours out onto this car, and we get that real nice shark-like aerodynamic, streamlined look. That's what we're really going for. So I'm going to pull this thing back apart, get it out of the storm, and again, I'm super happy with where this line is now, where we're going here. And let's move before the rain gets us. As I mentioned, I'm going to try to get this hood stripped down. I'm going to get the trim off of here. I'm going to salvage this trim. I'm going to try to incorporate it back into the build. My buddy Scott, where I got the hood, he needs this inner structure. He's got a hood that's missing it, so I'm going to get that back to him. And down here, we're going to trim off. This is going to cut just beneath this inner structure here. And I'm going to come down at an angle in this area, right here, above the body line out here. I'm going to come just above the body line a little bit, and then we're going to try to roll these wings on both sides into where the door will be. Get them kind of rolling along in that direction of where the doors will go. So let's get this thing stripped down. We'll get this cut off. And then here's the flares. You can see how this flares out on the side. We're going to take this flare off, starting right about here. We'll take this flare off and roll this down so we can maintain what's flat here. Then we'll be able to hang this thing back over the frame, and we'll see if we've got our angle right on the frame here. That's what's next. So let's get this hood cut down, lighten it up a little bit. Getting tired of picking it up. Take a few pounds off of it, that'd be great. So a lot of these screws are rusted up pretty good, and I got an impact on a couple of them, got them out. But since we're not using any of this anyway, and I'm just trying to salvage this piece for Scott, I'm gonna come in here and just trim along this edge here to get this whole section out. Then we'll do our final cut to get the rest of this off of here. Get my mask on. Try to practice what I preach. All right, now we got this loose. I can see to get this cotter pin out, and Scott will have his part, and he'll be happy. There we go. It's a good piece to save. And I've got something really cool to replace this. I'm really stoked. Thanks to my buddy Brian. He stepped up with something really neat. I'll show you later. I'm gonna keep these, salvage these for our project. Aren't those so cool? It's such a neat design. I love those letters. Okay, we got the trim off, and this is looking good. I can kind of see the back angle of this, what's flat and what's not. This is all flat up through here, so we're gonna keep this area. We're gonna trim right up along here, follow this back and drop it right down into where this starts to flare out way more right here. I'm gonna take a bunch of that off. What I'm gonna do, just so we can get, I'm gonna run along here right quick with this. Just come down below these, right about in there, I think, about where we want these to kind of end up. Somewhere in that area. I'm just dropping down a little bit below these holes here. and that'll give me an idea kind of where we need to be. I'll take my striping tape and I'll run back in here. So we're going to keep this down here at the bottom, and we're going to bring it up into this area right here. Uh-oh, not as sticky as I wanted it to be on this rust. Let's try that again. I think I can live with that. I think I can live with that right there. I think that's about where we want to trim it, right along there. Get rid of the flare, keep the point. That'll give us a start to bring our blend panel into this. I'll actually cut this up probably a little more like this here, just so I'm going above this flange, because I'm going to cut off the rolled edge in here. That's where we're going to be. So let's get to cutting. Okay, I used the death wheel to cut through this inner structure piece that was right here, and now that we've got let's see, like that. Now that we've got kind of clean cutting on this sheet metal, I'll use the shears, and I went ahead and followed a Sharpie line along the bottom of this tape in case it gets rolled up. It probably will get rolled up. It's already starting right here, actually. You know, these things, they don't like to run a radius at all. There we go. Now we know where that side lives. I'm so glad to get rid of this piece of crap, but you know what? It's nice to keep good pieces like this. You never know where something like this may fill in. Maybe the back of the seats come off of this thing. You just never know where you're going to need a nice piece of metal that's got a good symmetrical radius as the other side. You just never know. It's not a bad idea to hang on to this stuff. So like I said, it's a good idea to keep this stuff around. Just use it on this side. I'm able to line up the pieces here and take my marker and just use this part to get the radius somewhat the same as the other side. It does, even the front. I was able to use this radius and roll it around and use my marker and follow around with my marker to get this radius and that radius matching the back. And I know where this line lives because we measured off of the holes, the trim holes. So, and it's not that important. We're going to make two different sides for two different pieces. And when we go to put these pieces on, we're just going to scribe a line on the panel we build anyway. So it can be a little off. It doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical, but it's good to try to get it somewhat even to start. Just for your eye, if not anything else. Okay, I got the sides all trimmed off. For the first time I can see what this tail is going to look like, and I'm super, super happy about it. I'm not going to show you right now because I want to get the frame, drop down, get the firewall on, get the cowl back on, set this tail up on it, and I want to see how this is going to roll in. I don't want to make this cut just quite yet. Here's the inner structure right there. Comes all the way across here. I'll be cutting along this line and curving it in, and this will be the back of my seat area. I may need to add some material to it, not sure. I don't think so. I think this is right about where I'm going to start the back of the seat. But I want to make sure, I want to do some measuring off the cowl, off the doors, and see how much material I need to take out in this slice to bring this in. That'll be next. But it's Tuesday night, and the guys are all meeting up over at Denny's, and my buddy Mike has made his famous beans, and I'm making some marinated turkey. My buddy Fred's all excited about it. There's a place here in Indiana called Odin Locker. It's down in Odin, Indiana. Amazing butcher shop. They're very famous for their marinated turkey, and that's what I'm taking tonight. So everyone's excited, including myself. Maybe I'll share the dish with you. Maybe that's how we'll go out of this episode. But in the next episode, we'll either be doing the rear cross member and getting back on the chassis, or we're going to put the radiator in, get the grill set up, figure out, we're going to drop that down 2 inches, and then we need to section the hood and get the hood all laid out. And if we get the hood laid out, then we'll really be cooking on the body work, and we'll be ready to do some of this stuff back here in the back. But I'm super excited about the next episode. Listen, thank you so much for liking and sharing and subscribing to my page. I'm blown away by the interest in my first car build. I'm so excited to share stories with you about some of my favorite builders. I've been lucky enough to have a lot of great friends in hot rodding. I talked to my friend Hank Young today. I'm his biggest fan, I guarantee you that. I love everything Hank does. He's an amazing builder, great designer, just an all-around great guy. My friend Josh Shaw, Mike Whitney, Tom Opoff. I've met so many guys, and you're going to hear about those guys moving forward in these episodes. I've been watching these guys build their awesome cars for years, and I'm excited to build my first car and to share it with them and to get their input and get their help. I have all sorts of questions, and I've got a great pool of people to pull from. But I just want to tell you, thank you so much for liking and sharing and subscribing to my page. I appreciate it so much. I'm going to try to get this dropped tomorrow, which is Wednesday, and I'm going to try to share every Wednesday. I'll do my best. I think that'll be the day. I'll try to drop things on Wednesday. I'll do my very best. I probably won't get it every week, but I'm going to do my best to try to stay consistent because I want the car to be done. I want to go drive this thing. So until then, thank you so much, and keep liking and sharing and subscribing. Appreciate it.